Good morning. Happy Friday. This is Accuracy in America with Don Irvine once again as we head into yet another weekend, nearing the end of February already. So the month is moving fast. It's a little shorter month anyway, but it is moving fast. All right. So, first thing I want to talk about just very briefly is the snowstorm in Texas. This unexpected event, something that was kind of almost once in a lifetime for many Texans. It normally doesn't get anywhere near that cold. They don't get anywhere near that kind of snow. Lots of fingers being pointed at all kinds of people from the governor on down. But you have to kind of take a step back and look at it. Green energy's been given a lot of bad play here in press. But it is a combination of a lot of different factors with regard with that, right? Yeah, politicians, Texas politicians, largely controlled by Republicans, have, decided that they wanted Texas to be on their own grid. They wanted energy independence from other parts of the country, and they could deregulate as they wish. By and large, that program has worked. We like that free market. We like the idea that you can regulate your own markets or deregulate your own markets like that. So they have done that, and it has served them pretty well overall. However, a storm like this, kind of an apocalyptic event, showed that there are some issues. Now, wind turbines, they account for a decent slug of power in Texas. Wind turbines froze. Gas and coal, fossil fuels. They also had some issues because of intake, with water valves and everything like that. Also, the nuclear power plants also had trouble. They had pumps fail. So this was actually kind of a combination. It's not just green energy, but it is also fossil fuel that also failed along the way because the temperatures got so darn cold. We're talking below, 10 degrees. Some places were 2 or 3 degrees. At that point we saw, if you look at the news reports across Texas, the part that got hit, you saw pipes bursting, all kinds of issues. There are still millions of people, without power throughout the South, a large portion of them in Texas. Food is an issue. Water is an issue. As there's lack of power also means lack of refrigeration. Also with the roads conditions, they could not get supplies and get resupplied. Vaccines, that's another issue. Without refrigeration, many of the vaccines that need, high degree of refrigeration, they can't be used. They can't even ship them in. So, lots of things. There is a domino effect with this storm. Now, green energy, yeah, is there a problem with that? In the end, I think you have to look at energy as a combination of fossil fuel and green energy. Republican politicians, President Bush, Governor Perry, also, gave the green light as such to green energy, to the wind turbines, solar farms, and things like that. So, there is some political blame there. You're going to have to look at the Republicans to say they helped pave the way for their friends and other allies in the energy industry that wanted to try to capitalize on what? Federal tax credits for energy. Green energy could not survive. They could not flourish without federal tax credits because it is expensive to produce the energy. Wind turbines, solar panels, unless you are in a constant area where you've got the wind blowing 365 days a year, the sun shining brightly 365 days a year, it is really, really hard to generate enough energy to make a huge dent in the grid and actually bring it in cost effectively on top of that. As time has gone on, the cost of turbines and solar panels has been dropping, which is good news for everybody. All right. Okay. I have said before, I have solar panels on my house. It's a drop in the bucket on the grid here in Maryland in terms of the effect I've had. But because I have solar panels, the energy that is produced for that, what I pay for that energy that is produced is basically as a energy provider and not as the end user. But if I produce 400 kilowatt hours in a month, I get that 400 kilowatt hours credit against my fuel bill, my electric bill, and then I pay Tesla a certain amount per kilowatt hour, but I don't pay all the extra taxes that are levied by local, the state on the energy that I would consume. So there's an extra savings there. I don't know what the savings has been really since I've had these panels, which has been probably 4 or 5 years now. But I will say that I think it definitely has been worth it. The nub here will come in about 15 years when the lease is up, and then I will basically probably be worth the purchase for $1. And then I'm going to have to figure out, all right, I'm no longer in charge of the maintenance on a solar panel. What does that mean? What's my rate going to be? Now it's still down the line, and that's assuming I'll still be in this house. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But conservatives' attacks, blatant, just blindly attacking green energy for the failure here. They're not being honest, because fossil fuel, coal and natural gas plants could not function at capacity. Nuclear power plants could not function at capacity. They couldn't get there. They weren't able to, because the temperatures were so cold they could not operate. So that is a problem. Can you build more safety into the system? You can probably always do that. But if you have an event that's, you haven't seen snow like this in 30, 50, plus years, do you really blame, can you say that one singular event is something that just caused that everybody has to fix everything now? I think they'll take a look at it and they'll try to find a better way of dealing with it going forward. Now, part of the fallout of this has been Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz went off and took his kids off to Cancun, Mexico, for a warmer climate and some actual heat. He came back pretty quickly after the criticism. They call him fled dead. I mean, look, Fox News even got on his case for this. And Cruz admitted that it was probably a mistake to have done that. The optics were horrible. He was called tone deaf. He said he was doing it for his daughters. He was chaperoning his daughters. But yeah, your state is in the middle of a crisis. You have got people who can't get food, who have no electricity. They're shivering in their homes. They're trying to figure a way to stay, warm and find some food to eat. And you're off and taking your kids off to Cancun. You have to think about that, and you have to think about the optics, especially if you're a critical, as Cruz is, of liberals and a lot of things that liberals do. You have to think about all of those things. So Cruz is getting pulverized here, and probably he deserves some of that, some of the flack for all of that, but not necessarily to the extent that he's getting it. It does tend to be an overreaction, but Cruz is basically a lightning rod for right-wing conservatives. The liberals hate him, and so they will use him as kind of the, what is that? The person who lost my train of thought there. Someone who is just held up to high regard as that he's going to be the scapegoat here for this. So anyway, Rush Limbaugh passed away a couple of days ago. We were seeing lots of reaction, conservatives mourning his death, liberals dancing on his grave, some pretty vicious stuff. Okay, now look, I think conservatives and liberals, Democrats, Republicans, whatever, we all need to take a step back. When someone dies, even if you didn't like them, even if you've had extreme hatred for them, it is not the time to go and come out with vile and vicious things to say about the person. That is just not the way that we do things, or things should be done. But, as usual, and look, conservatives are not innocent of this when liberals die, but they are probably less likely to do so than the liberals on conservative icons. But Rush will be remembered as a pioneer, as someone who really did. I think he's been told, they talked about how he saved talk radio, he saved AM radio, and I think that is largely right. Believe me, as a child, I listened to some talk radio, but they were mostly local shows, right? I mean, talk radio was built on local personalities. Rush took that local personality out of Sacramento and made him a national force with 15 to 20 million listeners a week on the average. That is something to be said. He became a political force. He influenced a lot of people, generations of kids, really, brought up on Rush Limbaugh are solid conservatives today. Not all conservatives liked him. That's going to be it. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but he wasn't supposed to be, this journalist or some real expert on anything in particular. He knew that he was entertaining. And that's what he did, is that he entertained millions of Americans over 33 years of dominating the radio. He probably, he made money off of it, but he was also a very generous man. He donated to lots of causes, and never really let all of that go to his head in the sense that where he thought that he was above everyone else. He did put his money where his mouth was on many, many occasions. But the left, they're not sad to see him go because of his great influence on the conservative movement. He's going to leave a huge void. There is no one that's going to be able to step into this void. I mean, he helped, people like Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, people like that never would have really had another chance on talk radio on a national scene, all were able to succeed and thrive because of Rush Limbaugh and what he did back in the late 80s, when he started out and hit the scene. Now, there will be a huge void, as I've said. No one will be able to fill that void. Talk radio, how much of that goes on going forward? People are now into I don't even listen to talk radio 99% of the time. I'm listening to my podcast. I've got too many to listen to. So I'm always trying to catch up at the gym, in the car, wherever. So it's pretty rare that I'll listen to radio in my car at all. And that is the way it is, right? I mean, I think that is probably, in decline going forward. People are looking at YouTube, TikTok, and all those other forces, and they're really not going to be listening to the radio as much, whether or not it's a local or national personality. So I think the influence of any of those that are left in Rush's wake will be far less than if Rush was still here on the scene. And then finally, just a brief, update on school reopenings. President Biden, not really clear exactly what the policy is of the Biden administration or what they would like to see. Remember, the federal government has limited ability to do anything about the school system, right? They provide some money for school lunches and some other programs and things like that, but it's the state governments, it's the local governments that are funding teacher salaries and the schools, the taxpayers. And part of my tax money here in Maryland, Montgomery County, goes to funding the schools. And that is the way it is done in a large part of the country. And so that's where the influence is. But the teachers unions have, even though they say that they're there for the kids, they have shown a great disdain for the parents and for the kids that they're in charge of. That, schools are part of the social fabric of America, and they are letting the teachers, by refusing to go into the classrooms, are really letting down those students. They're losing learning time. They're losing the ability to socialize. This is not going to play out very well for us in the next 5-10 years as kids go manage to make it up the way and out of school. This period of time when they have lost their learning time will have deeply affected them. We've already seen mental illness, suicides, things like this spike upwards as a result of online learning that is not doing the trick. We need to, the spread of coronavirus through the schools has been documented throughout the country to be very low. Teacher risk is very low. But if you don't want to teach, find another job. Let somebody else who wants to teach come in there and teach. Get these kids back into the classrooms. Get them back to their thriving, ways of before, because our country will be radically hurt by this if we continue to stay down this path. All right. Enough of the pontificating for today. Thanks for joining me. If you want to hear more today, tune in tonight for Dr. Politics and Political Architect Show on Facebook and on YouTube. I don't know how many doctors we got on. These are honorary doctors that we just call them, right? But we'll talk about some of these subjects and more tonight for about an hour from 7 to 8 Eastern. So if you haven't liked the Facebook page or haven't visited our YouTube page, please do so. All right. Thanks a lot for joining me. Have a great Friday, rest of your day. Have a fabulous weekend. Stay safe, stay well, hopefully, and stay warm if you're in a cold area, and pray for Texas. Help them out. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you again on Monday.